Tom Andrews with Win Without War. John Isaacs, Council for Livable World, is with us without his elephant tie today, so this is a very good sign. John, we've seen nothing in terms of action from either the House or the Senate. This week or next week, Speaker Pelosi has indicated that that's one of the failings of this Congress, the inability to stop this war, to change policy. But outside of Washington, there's been some very interesting developments politically. One of them was a special election for the seat of Marty Meehan, Democrat of Massachusetts. Niki Tsongas, the wife of former Senator Paul Tsongas and presidential candidate in 1992, was running, obviously a name very well known in that district in Lowell. She has a 4-to-1 funding advantage. She has Speaker Pelosi and former President Clinton campaigning for her. She's running against a Republican and Iraq war vet that was pushing the whole theme of change, and she wins the election, but only by 6 points. Now, the Republicans are crowing about this, that in Massachusetts, bluest of blue states, a Democrat only wins a 6-point victory. Is there something significant in this that we should be paying attention to?
Special elections in the United States for House seats are always weird ducks and subject to easy overinterpretation.
As opposed to lame ducks.
So, as both Republicans and Democrats can draw some comfort from the election, Republicans can say, yes, the Republican candidate was outspent, he ran against Washington, he made Niki Tsongas a candidate of Washington, whether she was or not doesn't matter, and he did surprisingly well. On the other hand, the district in which they ran in Massachusetts is not one of the most Democratic districts in the country, notwithstanding Massachusetts' reputation. The present governor, Democrat, only won 51% in the district, the same total that Niki Tsongas won. Moreover, 3 Republican governors in the past, including Governor Romney, carried that district. So Tsongas should have done better, but ultimately she won. It's similar to a California special election a couple of years ago, also widely overinterpreted. But the point is, the Democrat won, the Republican has some comfort, and both sides keep moving forward towards the 2008 election.
Okay, so of all the congressional districts in Massachusetts, this is the most purple of them all, so perhaps no big surprise. In related developments, in the Senate at least, we have a confirmation hearing for the next Attorney General. As we all know, Attorney General Gonzalez left under a very big cloud of controversy. But interestingly enough, Michael Mukasey, who was the nominee, when asked about torture in yesterday's hearing, would not define clearly waterboarding, for example, that I think all of us would recognize as torture, very, very similar to the approach, the sort of mincing of words and the kind of slick handling of these kind of legalistic approaches to these questions. Should we be worried about this? Is this just another Gonzalez coming in with a different face, but nonetheless the same kind of approach to judiciary?
Unfortunately, since September 11, 2001, this Bush administration has widely interpreted what it could do to, quote-unquote, defeat the terrorists, including justifying torture. Now, they say they're not torturing. As the president says, we don't torture, but they torture the definition of torture to make it clear they don't do what they shouldn't do. But in fact, the Bush administration has gone against decades of American tradition where maybe the Nazis torture or the Japanese during World War II torture, but we don't do that. And in fact, we held to account a number of the World War II leaders for a number of illegal, immoral acts that were against various international conventions. This administration has tried to use very shaky definitions to justify all sorts of activities, not just torture, but rendition, sending some people we don't like to other countries like Syria and letting them torture the people. So this judge, the new Attorney General designate, seems to be right along that tradition. Unfortunately, it sounds so we have another 15 months of indefinite definition of torture, which means the United States is going to continue doing it until we get a new president.
And not only that, he said under questioning from the Judiciary Committee that, in fact, the president is above the law in certain circumstances. As Commander-in-Chief, the president, he says, can overstep, as it were, laws passed by Congress in things like wiretapping as Commander-in-Chief. And, you know, the thing that's interesting is that all the pundits are saying, and most Democrats are saying, that he's going to have an easy time getting confirmation. So one of the things that people could do if they want to take a stand and have their voice heard is to call members of the Senate and say, listen, ask serious questions and don't vote to confirm this nominee, particularly under this continuing cloud of asserting, as it were, that the president is above the law and the president will continue to torture. John, let's talk a little bit about Iran. We've been talking about this the last couple of weeks, and in terms of Iran, here we have the CIA continuing to say that under any projections, the Iranians are at least 5 to 10 years away from having the capacity to producing a nuclear weapon. Of course, they have the legal right to enrich uranium under a treaty that we signed, the United States and Iran signed, but they don't have the right to produce a weapon. And the Mohammed al-Baradei, the head of the IAEI, is saying that, look, through tough, strict, intrusive inspections, we can prevent Iran from getting the bomb. So that's the background. But despite that, this week, we have the Republican presidential candidates coming to Washington with very bellicose, very, very hawkish words about Iran. And then the president, in his news conference this week, again, bringing up Iran and saying that if we allow, that is, the international community allows Iran even to have the knowledge of how to produce a bomb, that's tantamount to World War III. What is your take on this? And should we be worried about this saber rattling, despite the fact that there's certainly no threat from Iran, at least right now?
We certainly should be afraid. The American people should be very wary that the Iraq War is a continuing disaster after 5 years, and yet this administration may go to the next step and actually attack Iran. I mean, a lot of military experts, retired military, active duty military, fairly conservative people say an attack on Iran it would be a disaster for not just Iran, but for the United States. It would hurt our position in the world, further weaken the U.S. military, and just be a disaster for American foreign policy. But the drums of war are clearly being beat in the White House with the Vice President, with the neoconservatives, and we have to be worried that this administration might actually take leave of its senses and launch an attack on Iran.
And we're watching very closely Freedom's Watch, that group formed by Vice President Cheney and his former aides in the White House. They have committed publicly to raising up to $200 million on public relations campaigns, and they have said that one of their priorities now is going to be Iran and warning the American public that Iran is a direct threat to the security of the United States. So obviously we have to watch that very, very closely. SCHIP, we talked about that last week, John. The House failed to override the president's veto. They say it's coming back in 2 weeks. This is the health insurance program. And the reason that we've been talking about this is the contrast between the president asking for $200 billion more for Iraq, but we can't spend $6.5 billion to insure 10 million children. Do you think that the House will eventually pass a veto-proof SCHIP measure?
Well, the Democrats, Speaker Pelosi yesterday said we'll bring the bill back. There will be some new negotiations. I think Democrats are unwilling to compromise on the level of funding, which, as you say, is $6.5 billion per year, and I think it's $35 billion over something like 7 years. But Democrats might change some of the individual provisions within the bill. And again, as you say, it makes the point that George Bush is willing to pay as much as he needs to and much more for war, but he's not willing to take care of the poor children in this country who need health care.
So we'll keep following these developments. The word for House members, if you're in touch with them, we hope you will be, is to pass a veto-proof measure for SCHIP and make the point, the contrast between taking care of our own children at home and spending $200 billion more over in Iraq. And of course the Judiciary Committee and its deliberations over the next Attorney General. I don't think this person should be confirmed unless he can take a totally different stand on these basic principles. I'm Tom Andrews with Win Without War. John Isaacs, Counsel for Livable World. Thanks for joining us. Go Red Sox. We'll see you next week.